a class action which has the effect of putting pressure for policy change, it can often bring it about, because when the defendants have a look at what might happen if the class action is successful, it can be an extremely costly exercise. And one way to compromise and settle that class action would be to ensure that the law enabled individuals to have access to what is a pharmaceutical product, and a pharmaceutical product that is no different to any other pharmaceutical product. And effectively what we have at the moment is a form of discrimination against patients who want to access a particular type of product.
And how do you think that class action will go?
Well, as I say, look, most class actions settle. Most class actions don't see their way to trial. And the reason for that is because they're horrendously expensive. They take a long time. The trial itself would take an enormously long time. And we may see, it may be an extremely useful tool, though, to get government to change policy.
Are you able to describe to us, I guess, in fairly layman's or simple terms, what needs to happen in order for law reform to occur in Australia, allowing the access of medicinal cannabis and in these wide-ranging areas, not just for the terminally ill, but opening it up? Is that a very complex process?
Well, it shouldn't be complex, and I know that Mick Palmer is joining me today, and Mick, I know, has had a good look at this issue, and we both have, and from a legal perspective, it's not complex. You simply remove from the schedules in drug legislation in Australia at the state and territory and Commonwealth levels cannabis that's being used for medicinal purposes, and you provide a defence to people. Now, more broadly, though, and I know this conference is about medical cannabis, but more broadly, and I know Mick's done some work on this with an eminent persons group. There are of course many of us who think that possession and use of drugs, all drugs, should be decriminalised. That is, taken out of the criminal law setting. But in relation to medical cannabis, though, and again, legislative change is not that difficult. We have governments which add drugs to the schedules, either in the Commonwealth Criminal Code or state and territory law, on a regular basis. And the removal of those drugs from schedules can be done as simply as the addition. We've just had a report here in Tasmania by the Legislative Council Committee, which has looked at medical cannabis, and one of the things that they've stressed is that you don't need complex legislation in order to make this happen. And I think there is a temptation sometimes on the part of governments, if they're trying something new, to put in so many safeguards and hurdles that it becomes extremely difficult for people, for the policy to actually make it into people's lives.
Greg, can I just go back to you? You've been prepared to do a lot of pro bono work to help the many families, I know the family in Victoria, Rhett and Cassie, who were arrested. I know you certainly got involved when they were arrested, and all families living with the threat of arrest. What powers are in place to protect them? Well,
can I say in relation to that case, we were able to go to child protection authorities, which unbelievably decided to get involved in that particular case. And
yes, I was the journalist, and actually it was
you were
not
too.
child protection. It was
of course you were. Of course you
what
were.
was it? Child abuse? What was it again?
Yeah, and we had, well, you know the case well, and we had, of course, we had pro bono services, not just from myself, but also from the law firm for Channel 7, which was terrific, and they did a great job, Justin Quill and his team. But we essentially said to them, look. Your duty is to ensure that parents are acting in the best interest of the child. To pick up a point Mick made, which is an absolutely valid point, the Tasmanian government, which had an opportunity, by the way, at the start of this year when Mel Washer and Troy Langman came down to be the first mover on medical cannabis, but they've opted not to do it, and Mike Baird has done it. It said again this week, well, we're not going to pass laws, but we've been told by Tasmania Police they won't prosecute people who are using cannabis for medical purposes. This places police in an invidious position, and it's a very unsatisfactory position, as Mick says. Police want to make sure that the law is clear. They shouldn't have to be then doing their own investigation to see whether that person is bona fide using cannabis for a medical purpose. It is a waste of community resources. It is a waste of police time. It puts police in a difficult position. And I can tell you now, from the perspective of courts, I mean, I just heard the local police officer, whose name I've now forgotten,
Clint Feeney, yeah.
but very bravely, I think, speaking out on this issue, because it is hard when you're a serving officer. But it is, I can tell you, there are very few judges and magistrates who want to be dealing with these cases.
Well, that's the wider issue. It's not just police; it's
they
judges
just
and magistrates as well who are increasingly feeling uncomfortable.
Well, I did a case last year, Helen, I did a case last year for a woman who had a letter from her doctor in which the doctor indicated he had no problem with her taking medical cannabis. In fact, he thought it was a good thing. So he was putting himself on the line. The magistrate made the point, Mr. Barnes, if we're in the United States and in 20 odd states, we wouldn't be having this discussion. So we're now, and I was in front of a magistrate recently in Tasmania and made similar comments. They don't want to deal with it. They want the law changed. So you've now got a really interesting alliance of defence lawyers, police, judges and magistrates, all saying we need to change the law. It is a farcical law.
Well, that's a pretty powerful alliance. What do you think of that, Mick?
The Australian Lawyers Alliance, which I was national president, we were the first law organisation to come out in Australia and support decriminalisation, support the sort of agenda that's been pushed by Mick and Paul Barrett and others. But can I just say, in relation to the law, it is inherently unsatisfactory to put police in a position of where in one district they might say, well, look, we won't prosecute, in another district we will. And secondly, to force police to delve into people's lives to see if, when people tell them they're using cannabis for medical purposes, police then have to go and talk to the doctors, go and talk to family members, go and talk to neighbours. It is, as I say, an utter waste of time. We just need to make the law simple. We need to make the law clear. It can be done. It is done in other areas. And I would have thought that this is the sort of legislation where you do get bipartisan support, because I think what's interesting about it is that you've got not only people in the Labor Party and the Greens, but you have a number of Liberals, including Mike Beard in New South Wales, who support medical cannabis. And so it is not as though this is an issue which splits along party lines. I would have thought if you had a vote in the Parliament of Tasmania, if you had a vote in most state parliaments and probably federal parliaments, particularly if you've got people who are informed and you hear the sort of case studies that we all know about and we've been hearing about in this conference, then to use the vernacular, it is a no-brainer.